Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm not going to lie. I'm still feeling like I'm recovering from last week. This seemed like all week just trying to get a little more sleep, just to build up that energy again. I'll tell you that week really took a lot out of me. But I'm definitely almost back in full form. I talked last week about going to a local show in Enfield this weekend. And in our group chat, when we're going back and forth, I was like, and usually I'm the one that drives. I'm like, everybody just come to my house and I'll drive. Everybody can hop in. But I threw it out there and I said, look, who's interested in driving? Who wants to pick me up this week? Two reasons. One, it's always fun to ride with other people. But this time I was just hoping just to relax after all that driving to and from Cleveland. I was just hoping to just kick back and relax in the back seat on the way to the show this one time. But lots happened this week before that show on Saturday. I talked on Thursday's episode about listing cards on eBay, and I never stopped. I just kept going and going, and I would go to another shelf and pull another box down and pull more cards out, and then go to my case and then go to another shelf and another box and another case. And I'm like, I just can't believe all these cards that I have. And I started to get the idea, like, do I really want to put them all on eBay? Maybe I just bring them to a show and just discount them down and just sell them off. And then I thought about it. I'm like, I guess that would have been the easiest thing to do. But then I started thinking, you know what? The people I'm going to sell them to are just going to buy them at a discount and go put them online, put them on eBay or social media or something like that. So I'm like, you know what? You can't beat them, join them, right? I mean, I know the people come to me and I know they're like, well, I have to buy this at this because I can only sell it at that or whatever. They're always trying to get that deal. I said, you know what? Instead of doing that with all these cards, why don't I do that myself? Why don't I take these cards and put the work in and get them all up online and take the percentages, right? You buy well. People go to the shows, and if they can buy well, right, they could just go right home, take a picture, put the card right up on eBay, and probably sell it and make money right away, right? So I'm thinking to myself, well, instead of being the guy that's selling them all off at a discount, why don't I just put the work in myself? So this week, I've just been going through cards day after day after day, listing them up on eBay and trying not to burn myself out, right? Trying to get up in the morning. If I know what my schedule is. I have a couple hours between jobs, and I'd pull out maybe 10, 12, 14 cards, and then I'd go through and take pictures front and back, then sit there and start listing them up one at a time, putting the descriptions in online. And I really started to surprise myself about how many cards I had here in the office. It was never ending. I thought when I came home, it was just going to be the soccer cards. Like the women's soccer cards. I'm just going to put them all up. I wasn't able to move them. I'm going to put them up online and move. And then there was more and more. And then there was the women's basketball cards. And then there was pop culture cards and, just even some football cards, right? Most of the cards, I shouldn't say most of the cards, a good amount of the cards I would rather sell at shows, right? I'd rather put in the case and sell at shows. And then I started saying to myself, so as I'm going through the cards, I'm like, no, I'm not going to put those online. I'd rather sell at the show. I'd rather sell those here. And I'm separating the cards. I'm putting some here. I'm putting some there. And all of a sudden I started looking at some of the cards I'm putting aside, and I'm like, Come on, man. I mean, you've been carrying these cards back and forth 6, 8 months back and forth to shows. People aren't buying them. So, it's time to do something different. Why do I keep putting them in the case if I'm not going to sell them? Why am I taking up that precious real estate that I'm paying for at this table and I'm not selling them? I'm like, you know what? It's just time to liquidate, time to move all these cards. And it was kind of a buildup all week as when I came home and I said I just wanted to do the women's soccer cards. And then I'm like, you know what? The fall's coming, let's do this. I got the time now. Let's take the time and let's just start liquidating all these cards and just start making room, start making, money and making room for new ones. I want to use this, and I use this term newfound money, right? Or just found money. But I know a number of listeners comment like, I hate that. And I understand that. I understand they don't like that expression because even though to me it's like found money, right? It was money that was spent. Like they didn't just appear and they just didn't come for free. And I understand that. Even though it was a long time ago or, a year ago or 6 months ago or 2 years ago, whatever it was still money spent to get these cards. It was money that I put out. And yeah, and like a lot of them, I know what it was, whether I bought the card outright or I ripped the card or I bought the card and graded the card for whatever reason. I know they all came with a price. I've been pretty pleasantly surprised with sales so far. And it was interesting. There were like a couple sales during the week, and I'm like, okay, this is good. But Friday and Saturday, all of a sudden, it just felt like the sales, were coming and coming. And I've sold somewhere between 20 or 30 cards already. And I'm sitting here, putting packages together, getting ready and I've been to the post office 3 times this week to ship cards. And now, I think at this point, I think I've listed about 125 cards, and I probably still have, I would say, maybe 50 cards, and all graded cards, maybe about 50 cards. And that's really, I did put in the women's soccer stuff. I did put singles up there that were all in one touches, but beyond that, as I'm going, everything else I'm putting up there, they're all graded cards. All these cards are coming in. They've been graded. They're in slabs. There's, and of course, the women's soccer team winning on Saturday with an overtime goal by my girl, Trinity Rodman, right? Her scoring that overtime goal alone within an hour of that goal, I had offers on 6 of her cards, so it was good. The timing was good for me that I had those cards listed and that they were up there ready to go when the offers started coming in. I've also started to list cards up there that are really great cards, but because they're low pop in either no recent sales or low recent sales, I have trouble moving them at shows. And now we're working into the football aspect of it. I'm even putting some football cards up there too. I'm putting those up on eBay as well. Hopefully, I'm just going to get more eyes on it, on these cards, and try to generate some interest because they're great cards and they should go for more. And, I go to the show and I put them in my case and I price it high and I tell people it's priced high, and I explain to them, what the card is and why this last sale. Like I have a Joe Burrow XRC auto to 49, right? So it should be a mid to high $2,000 card, but when he got injured back in November, there was one sale that went to bid for like 1,900 or 1,800 and something dollars. So when I put that card out, people are looking at that sale and immediately they're like, "Well, will you take 1,500?" No, no, absolutely not. I mean, that card's worth $1,000 more than that. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's just me, right? But comparably with his other autoed cards, they're most of them are over $2,000. So this here is an XRC. It's a Pop 8 on that particular card. So it just should be worth more money. And it doesn't sell because there's only 8 of them, right? There's only 8. When I say I know there's 49 because there's numbered to 49. The auto and the card's numbered to 49, but there's only 8 of them in PSA 9 out there. So there's only, how many are going to sell? So hopefully more eyes on it. Somebody, a collector or somebody's going to see it up there and make a much better offer on it. And it may be easier for me to move that card because I've had that card over a year, right? I got that card a year ago June in Chantilly. And I've been carrying this card, and there's one of those cards that's just a great card, and everybody thinks it's a great card, but nobody wants to spend the money on it. So it's a card that may do better off now, up online than it will taking it out to the show. The ultimate goal here is just to move all these cards, and hopefully all the women's soccer cards that I was hoping that I would have sold at the National that didn't. And now that, we're at the Olympics now and these players are prime time. So I'm trying to sell as many as I can. And the goal really is to be, for me to be cash ready when the WNBA Prism drops, right? That is one goal. Start taking some of this inventory, cashing out, getting new inventory to sell, at the upcoming shows that are coming up. And I also want to be traveling a little lighter to shows. I've just felt like over this last 6 months or so that I just got to a point where I'm overloading my tables with so many different cards that, some of my better cards are just getting lost in the cases and people just aren't seeing them. My vision moving forward, right? Just 2 showcases of liquid cards, and maybe a discount box on a 6-foot table, and getting ready to travel to a show, just preparing to go to a show. It's going to cut down so much of that pre-show work. I put in a ton of work, and I've talked about this, and I'm getting to a point now where I'm like, I don't think I need to put this much work in. I don't think it needs to be that much work to get ready for a show. And most of the time, that work is all these discount boxes and all these other cards, all this other stuff that I'm doing. Where if I'm just narrow it down a little bit more, and just make the whole operation more simple, right? I just think it's going to be better for me, and I'm going to be just more focused on what I'm doing. And it may give my table a little bit more identity too, right? Of just try to have all liquid cards in there, cards that I know that people want, that are going to sell pretty quick, and not put not keep putting these Joe Burrows and stuff in there that people just aren't looking for, or the price isn't right, or there's no recent sales, or there's no recent comps, and it's just a card that's going to keep sitting in the case, and then people are going to come and they'll see that card and they'll be like, oh yeah, I know this guy, I've seen this card 100 times, seen him at all the shows, and I've seen this card in this case. I don't want to be that guy, right? I want to start moving these cards a little quicker. I also think that lately, with such a mix of inventory at busier shows, that people are kind of walking up, and whatever they see first, they think that's what I'm selling. So if they see some pop culture, or if they see some women's soccer or women's basketball, whatever, like they don't, like I've had people that came and they walked on and then come back and say, somebody said you had, this in your case, a Stroud, silver prism. And I'm like, yeah, it's right here. I'm like, oh, I didn't see that before. Right. And I'm like, and I start to think to myself, maybe there's too many cards in the case, maybe I need less cards, and and I think too, and even myself, when I walk around and I look in people's cases, I always think to myself, less is better. Less cards that are more liquid versus filling up the cases with cards that aren't as liquid. I think cards just get lost in the case, and I've done that. I've walked up to people's cases that have so many cards in there, and I've looked at them, maybe before a show or during a show, and then somebody will come up and be like, "Oh, did you see that card?" And I'm like, "Where?" And it's like, "Oh, that guy." I'm like, "I was in there twice. I didn't see that." I go back and look, and at first I don't see it, and then I really study the case, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I see that." And sometimes I feel my cases are becoming a little bit like that, I have so many cards. So I'm trying to get as many cards in this case as possible, to display, to sell. And I think it's, less is going to be a little bit better. And it's crazy with eBay putting these cards up, that some of these cards that have been sitting in my case for a long time that nobody's even asked about, they've already sold. I put them up on eBay, and within a day and a half, they've sold. And I've had a number of, offers on cards and things like that. And, you can go through and, you could see how many, how many views, a card had, and how many people have favored it. And certain cards that I'm thinking to myself, I'm never going to sell this card. I'm going to have to really deep discount it. And it'd be one of those cards that's already had, like 30 or 40 views in 6 or 8 hours of being up. And I'm like, oh, like, so, when you see that many sales, people have put, saved searches. So when this particular card or this person or something pops up, it brings it to your attention. We all know we use eBay, you know what I mean? And, that's what I think. It's gotten so many views that people have saved these searches, and now all of a sudden this card is being popped up there and people are looking at it. And I'm not going to say it's all, it's all roses, right? I mean, people, it comes with the territory. People like trying to lowball prices, and they want to send you private emails and all this other stuff, why they think that you're asking too much and they're the only person that's going to buy, all this stuff. But for the most part, I have to say, 80% of it, people are really good. They respectable offers. They'll send a comment along with the offer, and it seems to be going just fine what I'm doing. And you know what? If you're interested in looking at any of those cars, I said on the last episode, just go to my Instagram profile, click on a link on the link tree, and then just click on eBay listings, and you'll see all listings up there. And like I said, it's really, I'm putting everything up there now and still doing it. When I should have been doing this podcast this morning, I was doing that. So now I'm doing it much later in the day. And like I said, I still got, probably 50 or so more cards that I have to put up there. So anyway, Saturday morning, I made plans to meet up with my guy Rich Zwittlerbug Cards and Tyler MT Cards and More to ride up to the Enfield show. We got up there early. I mean, the doors open at 9. I think we got up there at like 9:12, 9:13. I mean, just shortly after the doors open. And the parking lot was mobbed. The place was mobbed. I mean, it's incredible, how busy it was. And a number of people that I talk to all the time and I see at this show, they 3 different people said this to me in 3 different times during that day, that they felt this was the best local show in Connecticut. And on a day like today, there was no way you could argue, right? There was no way you could argue that the place, it's 2 levels. The place was packed. There was table outside that was packed. This is my guy, Alex at Ideal Cards. This is his show. And it's a great show. It's a once a month show, first Sunday of the month. And, yeah, I mean, there's great dealers there, and I think it's just located in Connecticut, but close to Massachusetts. I think it just brings in such a lot, a good number of people. And on a hot Saturday in August, that people just kept showing up, right? The show ended at 2. We left, I think, at 1:15, and people were still coming in when we were leaving. So that really shows you, even that late in the day, how popular this show is. My guy Bill and his son Billy, they had made plans to do another show on Saturday, but then changed their mind last minute. They showed up later in the day. I was thankful because I ended up getting a deal done with him. And before I tell you about the deal, I have to give you a little backstory on a card. So last January or February at a local show, I bought 2 cards from a young kid that he had just had graded. They were both Panini Phoenix. One was a 2018 Lamar Jackson rookie card, numbered to 25, PSA 10, and the other was a Justin Herbert yellow number. It's also a rookie card, numbered to 75, also PSA 10. So I bought those cards. I went to the Mohegan Sun show in February, and I sold the Justin Herbert card at that show. So the next big show I went to, I immediately sold the Justin Herbert card. About a month ago in our group chat, Tyler posted a picture of a Justin Herbert card that he had just picked up. And as soon as I saw the picture, I said, I own that card. I know exactly. I know that card well. I bought it and I sold it. Fast forward to Saturday, I started going through Bill's case, and there it was sitting in his case, right? The same card. So Tyler had ended up trading it to Bill a couple of weeks ago, and Bill had it in his case. So I said, you know what? It's like this card's made its way back home to me. It was almost like it was meant to be. So I started to we worked out a deal. I ended up it ended up being a 4-card deal. But the funny thing was, in that deal, I still had that Lamar Jackson, the rookie to 25 that I bought, the 2 cards together. So in that deal, I traded him that card, that Lamar Jackson card, and some cash for 4 cards to get back. So this here is the 2020 Panini Phoenix Justin Herbert yellow, right? This one's numbered to 75. So this was the card that I bought, sold, and now I own again. First time that's truly happened, that I've ended up with a card that I bought, sold, and it's made its way back to me. I also picked up a 2020 Donruss Optic Jalen Hurts Blue Hyper PSA 10. 2022 Donruss Optic Brock Purdy Purple Shock PSA 10. And a 2022 Bowman University Caitlin Clark First Bowman PSA 10. Yes, I'm still getting Caitlin Clark. So, and she's still selling, right? She's still selling. She's one of the hottest, I think, one of the hottest cards, one of the hottest players to sell at these shows right now. And no matter what people are selling in their cases, whether they're all basketball, whether they're baseball, whether they're football, whether they're vintage, right? You have to start looking through every case, because it's like everybody has a Caitlin Clark somewhere, because they bought it, or I'm buying it to sell off to them, right? So still doing it. So getting back to the Justin Herbert card, it's funny. I sometimes I get a little sentimental, right? When something like that, like you're like, I just think that was meant to be. It's like a lost dog that just came home, right? And I'm not going to keep it. It's not that I'm going to keep it, but there was something that said, you know what? Take the card back and sell it again. Right? So that's what I did. I find it interesting that some cards that you can get and put in your case, and they're a great card, but just never sells for whatever reason, right? So I talked about the Joe Burrow card that was just being a great card that I thought for sure would have sold. And I there was so many times I was so close to making deals on that card that fell through. And then that Lamar Jackson card that was a rookie, numbered to 25, and he had a great season, last year up into the, to the my Chiefs knocked them out in the playoffs, right? But it was a great card that I was so close to making deals on, and it just never happened. And for whatever reason, sometimes a card just never sells. But then you either trade it or you move it to someone else, and they'll sell it like immediately, like it's gone, right? And sometimes, I think it's just presenting it's the right person presenting the card to the right person, right? I know sometimes we pick up cards that I know that I'll buy from other people that they know that they've had for a long time because I've seen it in their case for a long time. And I know in their mind how they feel because I feel the same way. You're like, oh, I got the stale case. If somebody makes me a halfway decent offer, I'm just going to let it go because it's just been sitting in my case. It's not doing me any good sitting there. And I'll see that and I'll say to myself on some of those, not all of them, like selectively, I'll be like, you know what? I'm gonna make a deal for that card because I think I know the exact person who would want that card or the exact person or the right person who could move that card, right? And I'll make that deal and I'll take that card and I'll either present it to the right audience or I'll move it to somebody who will present it to a better audience that can move that card. And sometimes we just get a card that just never agreed with us, right? We just could never move it. And I'm sure this has happened to other people if you've been in the hobby long enough that you're finally like, oh, you know what? Yeah, go ahead, take the card. I'm gonna cut my losses on it because I'm tired of seeing it in my case. And they'll leave and they'll come back in the same show and they'll be like, oh yeah, I sold that card for blah blah, over what. And you'll be like, I've had that card for 8 months in my case, and I've done a show with that dealer all these times, and never bought that card from me, but you came and bought it and sold it. So it sometimes, like I said, it's the right person selling that card or presenting that card to the right audience. And sometimes we're not the right person on that card. And I understand that. And the longer I'm in the hobby, the more I'm starting to understand, this and not beat myself up, think like, oh, like, what's wrong with you? Why couldn't you have sold that card for that much to that guy? Why did it take? Well, he was a better salesman that day than I was, or knew how to sell that card better, or knew how to present that card to the right person. Um, and it just happens. It's nothing about me or you or anybody. It just happens. Sometimes people can sell things better than you can. So right now, we're sitting here in August, and I'm just hoping to narrow my cases down. Right, I have a bunch of shows coming up in August and then September, and I'm even booked. I booked a show up into November now, and like I said, I'm just hoping to narrow my cases down to football with a nice little section of women's basketball. And just try to be a little bit more simple and give my cases a little bit more identity of what I'm selling and who I am, right? Hopefully, I'll move all this women's soccer and pop culture stuff that I have on eBay. I'm also part of that 50 cards that I have to put up. I also have some tennis cards. I have some golf cards. It's going to put it all up there. Hopefully, I'm my goal completely turn my inventory over moving into the fall, right? Clean all this stuff out of here, put it in the hands of people that really want it and just keep it moving. I talked on an episode back in June saying, I felt the market was feeling funny back in June, that football wasn't popping as much as it should. And even now, I know certain players just haven't gotten the hype that would have normally gotten the hype by now. And I still see that. And I don't know if we're due for another market correction. I mean, it may or may not happen, but I'd rather be lean with cards, especially because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen between now and the fall, right? And I'd rather be lean with cards than bloated with cards and sitting here with all these cards. And that's where some of these cards ended up coming from during the last market correction, where maybe prices have dropped or whatever. I have boxes of different things like, oh, it doesn't make sense to sell that, to hold on to it now. But now, a couple of years later, you're like, yeah, it's time to move it. Just, get it out of here. Accept the losses on some, and just move on. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know how you feel. What do you think the market's going to do? Drop a comment. Let me know what your thoughts of the market coming up over the next 4 to 6 months. What do you think the market's going to do? And also let me know if you all woken up one day like I did and looked around your office and said, you know what? I just need to start selling all these cards. I cannot believe how many cards I have. Or come up with a plan to say, I want to sell all these cards because now I want to buy, card X or card Y, or, I want to go in a different direction, something like that. I've talked to a lot of people who have said, I'm falling out of love with my PC, or I'm just not into my PC like I used to. And I know a handful of people recently have started selling off PC cards that they've had that was part of their PC. And I almost felt bad for them at first, but then I'm like, no, you know what? I understand. I understand that. I mean, I've been there on a couple times. I've been there, and we see new cards, and we want to sometimes take our collecting in a different direction. There's something we didn't know existed, and now we do, and it sparked an interest, and it keeps us, active in the hobby. I know people fall out of love with their PC. That's okay. You want to move into something new? There you go. I'm happy to have my Trinity Rodman PC. I've also I talked about a little bit of a Sophia Smith PC. I have my Hunger Games PC, the NECA 2012 auto cards. So I've got that, and that's a 10 card set that I have half. I have 5, so I'm forever looking for the other 5. And I could even say my Chronicles of Riddick PC that I haven't even started yet. Right, another one that cards I'm looking for, but hardly ever see them out in the wild. So that's it. That's all I got for you this week. I honestly felt this week the hobby actually felt like work, right? It felt like work, putting the work in to get these cards sold. I know the reward at the end is going to feel good, right? I mean, as does preparing for a card show all week. And then you get out there and you're organized and things are priced well and labeled and everything else. And if it's a success, you're like, yeah, that worked out fine. And I think selling these cards on eBay too. So even though it felt like work this week, like I was putting in work, I think it's that work that's really going to pay off. So at the end of the day, right, instead of taking all these cards to a show and selling them off at a discount for other people to list online to make the money, I decided to do it myself, right? Can't beat them, join them. Cut the middleman out, if you will. And put the work in myself, right? Sometimes we have to put the work in ourselves. We have to little elbow grease. All right. So Thursday, we have an interview. So I'm going to have a guest on for an interview on Thursday's episode. I'm going to be traveling next weekend, so I won't be around. There'll be no Monday episode next week. I'll be back a week from Thursday. And I'll be getting ready for the Fishtown show, which is that following weekend. So guest on Thursday, no episode Monday. I'll be back live a week from Thursday. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. If you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe, and most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. And until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.